Hey everyone, making a deck profile to showcase this deck. This deck I've been playing recently. Before in set 1 it was called Divine Pile. It was because there's a Festus with and Poseidon, the 4 Divine Moons. It was called that because that was just the name that the Elestrals staff gave it when they had to make the little pie chart to show the top cut deck, the top cut distribution of decks. No longer is Poseidon and the Festus in the main deck. Got moved to the side, as you'll see in a bit, because there's no real matchups anymore for artifacts. There's one deck that I was worried about that I had the artifacts in. I have artifacts in the side for. Get to that later. For now, talk about the main deck. First off, of course, we have the 3 Elestrals and the 2 Divine Moons. Zeus is just an extremely powerful Divine Moon, and it can let pretty much anything of mine attack over anything on the opponent's field. It's always a good card to have in the deck. And then, of course, you have Aeolus to search out a suite of Wind Elestrals. The easiest way to win is if you get any sort of breathing room from your opponent. You can search out a receiver, and then the next turn search out Exaltair, letting you Nexus onto the receiver and getting both effects off, of course. It's really hard for an opponent to come back from that if they don't respond in time. Hitting the Spirit deck and ramping damage with more spirits on Elestral and getting extra value with a destruction or a heal. It's very powerful to get that off. Of course, it's not always going to happen every game. You're not going to get that kind of breathing room every game. The other Elestrals here, Exaltair and Solet, are answers to multiple different cards. Galaxair is the cheaper one, but answers less cards than Solet does, of course. All of these cards I found are perfectly fine to draw into. I haven't really had an issue with that. You end up finding good ways to make use of them, no matter what. Next Celestial Astrabbit is really powerful. Of course, you have the 5 defense, body, search stuff. Alongside Nemisail and Pegas, combo with Altar and the 2 Divine Moons, letting you defend against attacks and gain good advantage efficiently. And it's not. Most other decks don't have this many receivers like this does. Especially since these 2 receivers are searchable. So it's essentially like having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 receivers in the deck. And even then, you can just make use of it by enchanting a Divine Moon or a Stadium. It's not hard to find use for the Altar. Extremely powerful use case of Altar is Pegas and Altar. This allows you to do instant speed wound destruction. So say your opponent enchants a Divine Moon and they put like 2 on it. You can instantly, right after they enchant, activate Altar, Nexus onto Pegas and destroy the Divine Moon if it goes through, making it so that way they can't use the Divine Moon at all unless they cast a counter moon using the spirits on the Divine Moon, of course. Second to last Celestial is Lavalith. Lavalith is just extremely powerful, and unlike in Earth with Equal Links where the effects overlap a lot, it doesn't quite overlap as much as Pegas, since you're not always going for Pegas. In Earth, you kind of always want the Equal Links out on the field. And in this deck, if I have a Lavalith, I might as well just search Nemisail instead. Like, there's no point in getting Pegas, you know? And besides that, it can still work, and it has the big ol' 6 attack. Hit stuff very powerful. Um, only 2 of them in the deck because you don't want to draw 2 of them. If you draw 2 of them, you're forced to either have an embosure or send them over each other, which there's only a chance that you get the embosure as well, especially if you have two of the cards are lavalith, and sending them over each other requires that they don't respond to the first lavalith. They don't clear the first lavalith, as you should say. It's possible they tsunami it, and then you can ascend over that. Last celestial here is Galaxy. In general, it's, you know, just a good beater. It's good to have a beater for this deck with low stats. But some of the reasons why it's better than the other beaters, like Viserys or more copies of Soilip, is even though first reason is its biggest weakness, Gorgon's Gaze, won't actually happen that much, since every card in this deck, you know, has a reason to get Gorgon's Gaze, of course, and usually it'll be Elochick, or Lavalith, or Receiver, one of the offensive receivers, or Nexusers, right? Like, this Elochick is gonna get gazed way more time than this Galaxy ever will. It's just never gonna get gazed like that. It's only ever happened to me once playing this deck. And then, of course, unlike Viserys and a properly enchanted Soilip, it's immune to Tsunami. Soilip can be misenchanted for it, but Galaxy also is immune to the PTA attack drop. Third reason. A fourth reason is a small reason, is that it combos with Ash Rabbit. It's a small reason because Poseidon is no longer in the deck, so it's much harder to ever get that off. And even if you have a chance to re-enchant the Ash Rabbit, it's a debate whether you'd want to do water or its its broken effect off, of course. And the fifth reason is it's just powerful against water decks. Virotakwa is more powerful against water decks, but that has like a specific niche focus where Galaxy can be useful outside of it. In many other cases, it's quite a good beater for the deck. Moving on to the runes. Bad at speaking. Moving on to the runes. Island was put into this deck because it was the biggest problem playing against the Nexus in previous tournaments. Having it now as a response to Foley Forces, Atlantises, and Mount Olympuses from the respective decks is really good to have that option available. At the very least, it works as a Nexus bank for Alter, Shenanigans, and Exaltair. I haven't actually used it for Exaltair, but I've used it with Alter before, and it works nicely. Of course, we have Gorgon's Gaze and Tsunami. Never not gonna have them. Alter, I've talked about before, is broken. I have enough Nexus things for it, so it just works, and I can just use its extreme efficiency to win games. It's the best card to draw in this entire deck. You have to keep tempo up in order to use it effectively. Like, they can only really have one Celestial to use it effectively. Because if they have 2 Celestials, that's where Tsunami gets its strength. But if they only have 1, then being able to just stop the whole battle phase and get an effect off is really good. Sometimes if you can just stop 1 Celestial and it works. But it depends on the situation. Besides that, usually it's just the most powerful card in the deck. There's 3 Ambrosia because there's 5 different spirits in the deck. Generally, if you have 4 or more, you run 3. That's my philosophy. If you have 3 different spirits, you run 2 Ambrosia. If you have 4 or more, you run 3. I say or more as if I've ever built a deck that has more than 5 spirits. I won't doubt that happens in the future, knowing me. Next up, Earthquake. Over here, only run 2 of the earthquakes, because to help with the spirits here, spirit math, because if I only have 6 wind and the 4 earth to run 3 earthquakes, there's a lot that combo play with Exaltair I mentioned earlier is a lot, can only bring it done with Nemicel pretty much. And if Nemicel gets Gaze there, then you're just screwed. Like, there's no reason to play that when I can just take out 1 removal card in the deck and put in a PTA shield instead. It's not that much of a downgrade. And the rest of the runes in this deck are just some removal runes here. Rest of the Royal will be sided instead of PTA or shield, depending on the matchup, against Nexus decks. If I'm against decks, Nexus decks are like the ones that put the most spirits on board. If there's a deck that puts a lot of spirits on board, you side Royal in against that if you're going second. Otherwise, if you're going first, PTA is still better. Anyways, and talking about siding, we'll just go through the side deck. Onto the side deck, we have the artifacts here. Didn't take them out completely for this Craven spam matchup. I was worried about, no one even played it in the tournament. It was kind of dumb to bring it. Also, a good Craven spam deck would have lavalith anyways. So like, there was no reason to bring these, and just not including them in the future. The Fire Spirit was for Hephaestus, because I don't want a lavalith and a Hephaestus and only 2 Fire Spirits. Especially if I've already played lavalith and I draw into Hephaestus, now I can't support the lavalith with any of the artifact runes without the 3rd spirit. So that's why this is here if I were to side this in, but of course I'm never going to. There's the 3 royals, of course, and then you got 2 Sorlets. Sorlets work well against beaters, it works well against Craven and the crabs. Really good to have against them in the matchup. Just have more copies of guys that can swap their positions, beat over them, gain the advantage in my favor, hopefully. And then the last 2 slots in the deck are Pandora's Box, just to have something there, specifically against Aeolus. No one else even played Aeolus, but I'm, of course, doubtful that that'll still happen in the future, because it's still good, and even then I think it's good to be prepared for any sort of wind matchup with the Pandora's Box in here. So since this deck has such a bad matchup into the crab beaters, it only has a 50% win rate so far, which doesn't sound bad, but given that it's me playing it, it is bad. So I have to use some like dirty tricks to beat them when I did, so I wouldn't call them dirty tricks, I just call them tricks. Muddying my own name. So here we have the Tower of Winds idea. These 2 ideas I have are just for y'all to get started from, just some ideas I have that I'm gonna test. I won't say what I'm gonna actually do outside of my testing group, because that would be stupid, but for y'all, so that way y'all can learn and have somewhere to start to play against the crab matchup with. I'm going to show off the ideas I have. This idea is Tower of Winds. The idea is to have, quote unquote, have my cake and eat it, where I cast a Nemicel or a Pigas, which, you know, can't beat over the big guys, and then I Tower of Winds it into my own guy that can beat over it, or with some help beat over it, of course. Getting the effect off of these guys twice, and also getting out a big guy. We'll need some testing. The 3 swords are in the main here with it. Probably because I'm only going to be setting this against crabs, so I'm going to have the swords anyways, but also the higher the Elestral count, the more consistent it is. Being able to, you know, have an Elestral in hand and one on field requires, you know, more Elestrals to do. I might put an island into this if there's not enough Nexus banks for it, or I might put this down to 2. We'll see. I have to test, of course, in the future. And then the other idea that I have is Stadium Box, which I find a fun name. But the idea is to have Jolton. I might put in more Thunder Spirits here, maybe something like this. And you have 3 different stadiums: Island, Mount Olympus, Atlantis. Island is just a good one that supports the majority of my guys. It's not actually the majority, but since I'm gonna be seeing them pretty much every game, hopefully, it is. So, I could just say these guys, I don't have to say the majority. Anyways, Island for these wind guys, and then you have Atlantis. For Galaxy, Misenchanted Soilet, Misenchanted these guys, and Poseidon. You can access onto it. Not so sure about this idea, just something in here to test. It is definitely a fun idea. And then the cool part is Mount Olympus and Raise the Tops. Don't know how consistent 3 of these are. I might put it down to 2. But having some cheap removal to use against the big guys will be a great help with these Race to the Tops. Also, Mount Olympus will mean that the Jolton is a 5 guy if I search Mount Olympus, which is good because there's a surprising amount of Thunder cards in the deck. It's also a Nexus bank with the altar onto an Astrobit, so I don't misenchant Island. It's not nearly as telegraphed. Also, if the Mount Olympus is on the field, this will have 6 defense, which none of those guys can be over. But a lavalith will of course hit it, which is a slight issue. There's also the boom bat, of course. Both can be countered with gaze, but it shouldn't be relying on gaze. But yeah, those are the 2 ideas I have that I'm going to test going into it. Test going into this week, and I'll like bring some of these into the side for the next tournament. Yeah, I made this video because I wanted to get y'all to play the deck. Like, I hope I've proven that it's good, having topped with it multiple times. And I feel like I was in a call with Siberian like after a game, and he was like, I'm like the only one that knows how to play it. Like, so I figured I would, you know, show it off, describe how it works and stuff, so y'all can get your can start playing it, and hopefully it shakes up the meta a little bit. I would still main deck this version and then side into the other 2, of course. But at the end of the day, it's up to you how you play it. You just gotta beware of the crabs. It's the biggest issue for the deck. A few more ideas I had while recording this is leaning into Galaxy more. That might be a simple approach, because all of them except for Lavalith can be outed by Galaxy. And also, another approach might be Boombat, trying to play them at their own game, though I don't know how well that'll work. You might want to put in more removal into the deck, but that might be too much of a switch up from how the deck plays, that I don't think that's possible. I think we gotta play our own game with some of the Galaxias, the Tower of Winds, or the stadiums. Yeah, hope y'all have a good day, and I wanna see some toolbox out there. Have some fun.